If I don't make the big time, I had to go and try this therapy. They took it in turns. Yeah, I moved to Manchester in 2016, so I'd not long been made redundant, and my girlfriend at the time, she'd landed her dream job there, so I decided to move there with her. I wanted to pursue a career as a professional DJ, so I'd always DJ'd, but as like a part-time on a weekend basis, and I wanted to see if I could take that to the next level. I've moved away from all my family and friends. A good friend of mine had come up to come and spend the night to see me and my girlfriend at the time. She decided to stay in. We went out. Originally, you just go to a pub for a couple of pints, and then it doesn't always work out like that. So we ended up going clubbing. We got separated. When one of the clubs, the last place we were, it closed, and I couldn't find him anywhere. Got chatting to a group of people outside, and they offered for me to go for another drink with them. At this point, like in any sober state of mind, you realise it's much more sense to go home, but it's not always the way that you work, and didn't think anything of it. It's something I've done many times before. So went for another drink with a big group of people. That group of people fizzled down. I then remember having one more drink with just two of these people, and then that's kind of when everything goes a bit more hazy. I can't remember explicitly, I couldn't tell it as a story as such, but I remember enough detail to know that then those two people decided to rape me. That it went on for a number of hours. They took a lot of, they took it in turns, and then I remember coming around, leaving, and then going back and having to explain to my girlfriend and my friend that I'd been out with where I'd been, and I just burst out crying, and it came out straight away. I think that I owe it all to my family and friends. I think that they think I don't know, like all the times that they would meet up behind my back and they would share stories, and almost I can from working in care as a young lad, I can say that it was almost like they put care plans in place for me. There was always one to watch around me. They shared stories of what I'd said and the bits of information I'd let out, and they painted a picture for themselves, and think that they're incredible for doing that. But then it always meant that I was being looked after without knowing that I was being looked after. I always said that I didn't want to be treated any differently, and by them all talking to one another and showing their emotion and how they felt behind my back, it enabled me to remain strong, but also be supported and looked after for each process. They could chip away at you. Sam, you need to go and have therapy. Sam, you need to go and do this, rather than it being all pile on me and try and force me to do it and me push them away further. It was the little chips that then meant that I went and did what I think that everyone should do. It's just not as easy, or not what you think you should at that time. I was at the point where I was ready to kill myself. Like, I can say that openly now. I didn't want to live anymore. I couldn't deal with this. And I remember having elements of that conversation with my mum, and I think it's the first time you could kind of hear emotion in my mum's voice of real concern. And I really wasn't. I remember I was in floods of tears as having this conversation on the phone whilst hiding in a car park instead of going into work. It really was a really dark place, and I'd tried everything else. I'd been into self-destruct with drinking, and I tried to work myself silly to forget about it, and those things weren't working. So I decided that I had to go and try this therapy. And initially I would sit there with the therapist and tell him anything other than how I was actually feeling. For a good 4 weeks I'd say I fobbed him off, and there was, but they know that, and I guess it takes a while. And then I think on that fourth session it all kind of came out, and it was horrible. It wasn't a pleasant experience at all. You were reliving it in a way. But then after that, then the next week I went back, it was a little bit easier, and then again, and then each time I go back I'd maybe tell a little bit more, or I wouldn't directly be talking about it, but talking about something that happened in my life then. And again, everything became easier. As soon as I started to talk about it, essentially stop feeling alone, you feel that it is okay, you realise it's not your fault, and then you can continue with other elements of your life. So I'm very involved with Survivors Manchester. They were the organisation that supported me. I did lots of media and shared my story. I wanted other people to realise that it does happen to men, it does happen to straight men, and that they're not alone and the support's out there. We're allowed to talk about it, we're allowed to get upset, and that's what I set out to achieve. And by doing that, Duncan then asked me afterwards if I wanted to become an ambassador as far as Manchester, which is a great honour. I think that as we continue to accept it as wider, that then more and more people will find it within themselves to go and talk about it. One of the biggest problems when it comes to men is this image of masculinity that we've all created over time, and I think that maybe 100, 150 years ago, masculinity was a big thing. You know, you need to be able to go out and work, you were the breadwinner, or before that, you know, you held the sword and you went out to fight and you fight for king and all this other stuff. Whereas we're not out with swords anymore, and you know, we're in a world where women and men are equal, or certainly striving to be equal. I'm still a professional DJ, which is what I wanted to do. It was the DJ that got me out of the house for the first time, so even in the dark days, going to go and do a gig. And still, it still relates now. You know, I can have a bad week or a bad couple of days, something might have set me off, or something unrelated, even still. But yet, then going out to go and DJ, you kind of forget about that. That's my outlet, and it has been. That's what put me back in situations where there's lots of people. It put me back in a nightlife environment, and those would have been situations I would have been scared of. Going out and DJing makes me feel normal again. I realise I am, but there's still part of me that thinks I'm a little bit different. There's still some things that I do differently to what a normal person would. I've kept the busy schedule that I've now managed to keep for the last year and a half. I'm still DJing, still pursuing that. It'll always be my sort of passion. However, I now have a house and a girlfriend and things to think about as well. And I've started at university because what I want to do is continue in DJing. But if I don't make the big time by the time I finish university, then I'll go and get a job like a normal person.